Hi and welcome to this week's Happy Hour. So you've heard of counting sheep probably to go to sleep, but did you know that counting the breath is a really powerful way to basically hack your nervous system and really quickly create a calm, resilient nervous system? So let's find out. Hi, welcome back. So there are a lot of breath and meditation practices that use counting as a part of the practice. For instance, we've done in the past an extended exhale where you might breathe in for a count of 4, exhale for a count of 8, and we've done box breathing before, or samavriti, where you're counting in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. So why do we have so many of these techniques that use counting? Well, with the benefit of modern neuroscience, we've been able to work out why counting and using counting for, particularly with the breath, is so impactful on our nervous system. So we're going to run through the 4 benefits, or the 4 main ways that the body is impacted by changes to the breath using counting. And then I'll run you through a few techniques that use counting that you can have a try on your own. Okay, so number 1 is autonomic balance. So what does that mean? We're all familiar with the idea of fight and flight and rest and digest. The 2 arms, I guess, of our nervous system. Our sympathetic nervous system is that flight or fight, emergency, protect yourself, get out of danger. And then we should be spending most of our time in that relaxed rest or digest. Unfortunately, our brain isn't really designed to tell the difference between the cortisol bump that we get from something jumping out at us and the cortisol jump we get when we get a negative email or something happens at work. And so we spend in our modern world a lot of time in that activated kind of flight or fight response. And what happens with counting is most of the techniques using counting, they're slowing and creating a really gentle rhythm to the breath. And what that does is it activates the vagus nerve. And it is a really big nerve that runs all the way down. And it is the activator of our parasympathetic rest and digest system. So we're stimulating and switching our body into rest or digest just by changing the pattern of our breath through the counting and the rhythm. And what also happens is when the vagus nerve is stimulated, it releases a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine. And this is like a brake pedal for your heart rate. So when this is released, it lets your body know that you're safe, and so your heart rate will slow as you slow and create that rhythm with counting with your breath. So that's the first way. The second way is by reducing neural noise through cognitive load. So what does that mean? Our brain, when it's not doing an active task, tends to flick back into this default mode network. And that's where your mind is wandering off into the future or the past. It's often where we're ruminating or bringing up and stressing about things that we can't control. And so what counting does is it gives your brain a job. I always say this when I'm teaching these practices to students, is that your brain is going to do what it does, If you give it a job, like counting, then it's a top-down task. So it activates the prefrontal cortex, the brain is activated, so the default mode network of rumination and carrying on quietens down, or it can completely kind of fade out. So it means that there's not all these distracting thoughts stopping you from quickly calming the nervous system, which is a really powerful thing for something so simple as just counting. The third way that counting can help calm the nervous system is through something called respiratory sinus arrhythmia, which is a really fancy way to say that the breath, the in breath and the out breath affects your heart rate. So when you breathe in, the heart rate slightly increases. When you breathe out, the heart rate slightly decreases. So when we use counting, a lot of the practices increase the length of the exhale, which then means that the heart rate is reducing, helping to calm the nervous system. But just even getting that balance of slow rhythmic changes can help to improve something called heart rate variability. And heart rate variability is your body's being able to respond to situations. And it's a really powerful indicator of a calm, resilient nervous system. And the fourth way that counting can help to calm the nervous system is through something that I like to call an amygdala timeout. So the amygdala is a really ancient part of our brain that is basically our threat detection system. So when there is something that's dangerous or that we need to react to, the amygdala is activated and it activates that stress, fight or flight, and gets you ready to respond quickly. So it's quick decisions and very reactive. It can't really tell the difference though between a threat, something jumping out at you, and a really narky email that you've received that makes you feel bad. So in modern life, it tends to be our amygdala is just dinging off all the time because we're in a constant state of small stresses that are activating this big response when it doesn't really need to be activated. But our brains haven't quite got to the point where they've evolved past that reaction system. And that amygdala activation is very closely linked with the breath. So you'll notice that when you're stressed, you tend to breathe quick, shallow, short breaths. That like little bit of hyperventilating, like little quick short breaths, just in the top, kind of the top of the lungs, in the chest movement. When you're calm and relaxed and you're just really chill, you'll breathe slow and deep and long. And so that's it's letting us know how our nervous system is. So you can use that. You can go, oh, I'm breathing really shallow. I must be feeling stressed, even if you haven't noticed it. Oh, I'm breathing really deeply. I must be relaxed. And you can use that as a signal. The brain also can't tell the difference, though, between whether the breath is slow and relaxed because you are calm, your nervous system is calm, or because you've consciously slowed and calmed the breath. And what it does is when we use counting to rhythmically slow and calm the breath, it tells the amygdala it's all good, it's safe. And so it just calms down. And then that calms the nervous system. So it's a really quick hack. You're just reversing, creating the breath that feels calm, then feeds back to the amygdala that you're calm. And so it will respond accordingly. So it's really powerful the way that our brain can respond so effectively to just something so simple as counting the breath. And it's why there are so many techniques that use counting. It's why counting sheep is, a thing as well, because it's just effective. So we've talked about a few ways or types of counting breath practice. Something like the extended exhale. So with that one there, however long you're breathing in for, say maybe you're breathing in for a count of 3 or 4, you breathe out for twice as long. So if you're breathing in for 3, you'll breathe out for 6. If you're breathing in for 4, you'll breathe out for 8. And that really links into that, the lowering of the heart rate with the exhale, and the slow, relaxed breath. So that's one. We've talked about box breathing before, where you're counting in for 4, holding for 4, counting out for 4, holding for 4. There are variations of this. If you find the holding actually makes you feel more tense, you can just count in for 4, out for 4. Or you could try counting in for 4, holding at the top of the breath, and counting out for 4, but not doing the one at the bottom. There's infinite numbers of different patterns of the length of the inhale, the length of the hold, and the length of the exhale, which all will impact the nervous system slightly differently. So if you've seen any of those, maybe breathing a 4, 7, 8 or 4, 6, all using the same basic underlying premise to create that calm nervous system. And there's another technique that's more of a meditation, and it's a very ancient practice called Zen breath. It comes from Zen Buddhism. And with Zen breath, what they are doing is it's like a breath focus meditation. So you focus on the breath, bring the attention to the breath, but it adds in counting to calm the mind from its, busy distraction. And so you don't change the breath. You just, every in-breath, you count. Out-breath, count. In-breath, count. Out-breath, count. So you're just counting up 1, 2, 3, 4. You keep counting till you get to 10, and then you begin again. And you just go through. What you'll find is sometimes you'll completely get distracted. The mind will still distract you. Just come back to 1. And sometimes you'll end up counting. You'll forget to stop at 10 if your mind starts reacting. And so then again, you just start at 1. So it's just a really nice way to begin to bring your awareness to one point of focus. But it uses counting to make it a little bit easier to keep that focus and to kind of drown out that neural noise in the background. Next week, I'll guide you through a Zen breath practice. So tune in for next week for that one. In the meantime, try one of these other ones. So find which ones work best for you. Most of them you can do anywhere. You could be sitting in the car waiting, or at your desk. You can do it before you go to bed or when you're going to sleep, or you can do it if you wake up in the middle of the night. It'll give your mind something to do while your body falls back to sleep. All right, give it a go. I'd love to hear how you find some of these counting techniques. So please put a comment below. Otherwise, I'll see you next week.